live and speak about things. We were enjoying discussions on Star Wars and other stuff. Anyway, welcome to Discussing Tabletop, where you missed the pre-show, and it's fine. I feel like sometimes these conversations are great to save, and other times, no, you never know.
When back when Children of Wrath was a thing, I don't think you could ever have those air and see the light of day.
Oh my god. Those conversations, those were just... They were both terrible and gold.
Yeah, I don't think those ones can ever see the light of day.
To be fair, I actually really liked... There was someone who I listened to who ended up stopped doing stuff, but they made RPG streams, and they literally devoted a half an hour to just talking before everything, and I really enjoyed those parts.
Kind of. This is some Twitch backend. You should always have 30 minutes to an hour of just chatting, because that's the time it takes for most of your audience to join the stream.
That's assuming you have an audience in the first place. So
if you've got an audience, you should always do at least 30 minutes of just chatting.
Yep.
I'm not quite that good, but I do kind of tend to usually give 15, 20 minutes, of booping around before I actually dive into something. So I at least do a little bit of that.
Yeah. My thought is I want to jump into the action because if someone randomly joins me, I want them to feel like stuff is going on.
That's also a good thing. Try. There's a lot of ways to it.
But I do enjoy starting before all of you are ready on Friday because, Tantus, you take 10 minutes to get here and get set up half the time, so I end up talking to Blaze for 10 minutes before.
It's this weird thing that, unfortunately, because I have my stream and then I have to take a break, is sometimes something comes up in that break that I don't plan for. So sort of my mom's like, oh, hey, we ordered food, go pick it up for us so you can have some food. I'm like, well, I don't have to pick up food, but now I don't make food, I have to wait and then go grab it. Which can take me later than I'm planning, especially when a car breaks down. Anyway.
Also, if I completely zone out, that's because I don't have ADD meds right now. Because they're out of them at the pharmacy that I go to.
Nice.
Hopefully they'll get them in sometime next week.
Shall we dive into our topics for today then? We'll hit the news first, as we usually do, and we can start with, hey, it's Free RPG Day!
Woo.
Yeah, I do need to dig around a little bit more. I found Season Peku's free art stuff.
Yeah, I'll share that link that you gave me. The
yeah,
stuff.
technically you can just join their Discord, and it's on their Discord. You do have to share your email with them, but that doesn't bother me all that much.
Who doesn't have your email at this point?
Yeah. Apparently there was a leak with Google, I heard.
There was a whole bunch of leaks. Have two-factor authentication. I think that's the big suggestion. Two-factor is a good way that if there's a leak, you are at least in pretty good shape to not have to worry too much about it. And then go change passwords and stuff, of course. Oh, hey, that's right. I keep forgetting I have to do that. I had it maximized at the top of it.
I was about to say.
Discord! Let me just make sure anything else is not broken here before we get started. If I go to multiple windows. There we go. So yeah, Chipeco has some stuff. We talk about the Paizo stuff, but a lot of groups have a bunch of free stuff available.
Also, how do you pronounce that? I get Peku, or Piku, or whatever, but Peku's fine. But CZE, I always call it Says, like C-E-Z. But I have no idea.
I think it's supposed to be Che Peku, because I've heard someone say it that way, but it could be them mispronouncing.
Yeah, I think it is Che Peku, because it's two people, right?
Yeah. But yes, so it is a good day, especially if you can end up going to a store. You can probably get copies of stuff. As we said last week for the Pathfinder or the Paizo stuff, the Pathfinder Starfinder stuff, you can get those free PDF after today, or you could pay them for a physical copy. But I think they do to some stores provide physical copies if you want to get them there, and you can go visit stores. Check out your local game stores. Anyway,
okay, actually, I love this. Okay, someone on Reddit asked, how do you pronounce Sezpeku? And Sezpeku literally responded to them saying, that is a mystery the internet has pondered over for many years. There's no right answer.
That's fair.
I like that they themselves responded to that.
So, now that we got that out of the way, let's dive into D&D Round Up, as I call it. And we can kind of actually hint and add the magic that Momo you mentioned in here too, to make it more of a Wizards Roundup. But we'll start, of course, with the big one. Is we know more about a canceled D&D project that was canceled back in 2023.
Yeah, it was a video game, a action RPG that I don't believe we ever really got any information about other than it existed and was in development.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And from the leaked footage, it looked like it was pretty far along, and then Wizards was just like, nah.
Yeah, did Wizards cancel it?
Wizards shut it down. It was not Hasbro, it was Wizards that did it.
Yeah, it was Wizards shut down Project Dante in 2023.
Which I don't know the logic of, because surely you would want 2 video games.
You also don't take. It also doesn't take as much time. It does take a team at Wizards to constantly like negotiate and make a consult and stuff. So it is some of their. What happened in 2023? Hold on. Did it say when in 2023?
I don't believe it said when it was canceled.
There were, according to this article, there were 5 other unannounced titles that were that canceled alongside.
Yeah, I think this was when they started their big consolidation of stuff.
Was this after the movie?
This might be when they were like, we're gonna cancel a bunch of stuff and make a dedicated video game studio for this stuff. Which then made a bunch of BioWare people.
Remember how things didn't go as well for the movie and they shut a bunch of stuff down later on
okay. This
it
makes
was
sense.
the same. It was 2023 and the movie was out at the beginning of the year.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
Still, it sucks because the leaked footage looks like if it had a little more polish, it would be pretty fun.
It looked, so that looked like a. So basically, I've actually researched how development works. So it looked like a developer test build.
Yeah.
That was, I would argue, it was in beta.
Yeah.
So they had a lot of the mechanics ironed out, and they were probably starting to build world and like levels, doing a lot of level design, and doing like that. Still takes a long time. So I'd probably say it's probably was 50% of the way there, which is still a good ways away, but also a good way along.
Yeah, that's the thing is. It still would be like 50%, and the thing is, we don't know how far along all those other projects were. Also,
yeah.
It sucks because it reminds me a bit of sort of a Dragon Age style RPG.
Yeah,
in terms of that combat.
I was thinking Dragon Age.
Inquisition. It reminds me of that a little bit.
Yeah, but there was Dragon Age. Then there was Dragon's Dogma is another.
Dragon's Dogma. It's also it's kind of just is a little rough. But yeah, that one we got information on. It sucks that it was canceled, but these things do happen, and you would be shocked at the amount of games that actually just never see the light of day.
Oh, you'd be surprised how many completely finished games get canceled right at the finish line. It's weird. Like, I don't get that one at all.
Hey, remember Scalebound, guys? Remember when that was a game that everyone was excited for and Microsoft killed it?
I was going to say...
Yes, I remember that one, yeah.
Outside of the game industry, this is unfortunately something that happens in a lot of industries. When we see leaked TV series and stuff like that end up getting canceled.
I mean, look at Warner Brothers with the Batgirl movie that just they canceled it for tax reasons.
That another studio had to come in and pay them, and that because the Looney Tunes movie that was also canceled, I think is coming out or something.
That one, thank God, saw the light of day.
Yeah, but another group had to come in and save it, basically, because they had these 2 finished movies and just were like, well, they're done. We could release them. Or
tax write-offs.
Yeah, and that's why in the long run I'm someone who I think there's a lot more area for business and stuff to exist than some people think, but honestly there is a point where purely statistic money based basically looking at things only from a money and statistic basis is really bad for people and companies in the long run.
Yeah.
Even though it may financially be statistically profitable or, mathematically profitable in the short run.
It's the problem that also people aren't statistics. We can boil them down to a degree of it, but you never know how people are going to react in the long run because people aren't statistics.
Yeah,
they're unpredictable.
Well, also they have families, they have, they have dreams, they have, that's why I dislike the whole Hasbro firing a ton of people just to cut money when the CEO still took, $1 million, It's like it was literally just counting the people and basically being, these are money we don't have to pay if we rehire, which actually, also fun fact, that also tends to backfire because hiring in most cases tends to be more expensive than the amount of money you get back by hiring people at lower cost, at lower raise, people without raises.
The thing is, I kind of see with this article here, and I kind of am going to predict, and this is a bad prediction, I think they are probably going to push for some kind of Baldur's Gate 4, and it's not going to be Baldur's Gate 3. And it might still be successful, whoever does it, but it's not going to be the same, it's going to be different. Sort of like, think Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. Those were two different, entirely different games.
So it's... One of the things that constantly comes up is Baldur's Gate 3, yes, is maybe arguably one of the best games ever made, mechanically and narratively. However, sometimes it's nicer to not have a Baldur's Gate 3 and not have to play a game for over 100 hours to finish it.
Yep. I mean, I haven't actually finished the game yet.
I've finished it one time, and I have started it so many more times.
I have started it about 12 times.
One day, I've only played through, I think, the beginning part twice with two groups that we didn't go much farther. Mm-hmm. So one day I will actually play through more of the game other than getting into, I think it was halfway through the first chapter. But this is Divinity 2 Originals. This is Divinity Original Sin 2, same problem. It took me forever to even get to the last chapter, and
I still never finished Divinity Original Sin 2.
Hey, Tantus, how about we add it to our rotation on Friday?
So long. It is so long. I mean, it's a thought. One of these days.
3 hours... put into 100.
It'll just take you a year to finish it. It's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm fine with that. It's at least a fun game.
True.
It's like me with a Rogue Trader. They keep releasing DLC, so I can't finish the game.
But yeah, I don't think anything Wizards is going to make or fund right now is something that's going to be worth consuming until they.
It's weird. I think, from a video game aspect, absolutely not, because they're so money-driven at the moment, so nothing will be of consumer-friendly quality.
Yeah. I don't think there's not going to be bad projects that are going to be out there or bad products. But
I think they will make great... They'll make a good video game that you should buy when it's on sale for 50% off.
Yep. Yeah. It's just so weird because it's kind of this weird thing where the things that sell the best are the things with the most heart, but the things that companies tend to hate are the things with heart because they're the most. It's hard. It's just so hard to judge in any numeric way, which makes them really not like it.
When I think about this kind of stuff, I always go back to the fact that a mount in World of Warcraft sold and made more money than the entirety of StarCraft 2.
Oh. Yeah.
And when I think about that, I'm just a little bit sad. And then I hate video games a little more every day.
It's also you only have to convince so many people to earn your money, and it's also it's that entire thing of how much good wishes are you ruining in the process of doing this over the long run? Slowly but surely, you erode away at your brain.
What do you think Wizards don't you guys have phones moment will be?
I don't know.
What do you mean? Don't you guys have phones?
So when there was the really infamous sort of when people started to notice that Blizzard sucked was during a BlizzCon where they announced Diablo Immortal. The audience reaction
Mobile
was
game.
like mostly booze, and then one guy, for whatever reason, was like, "Don't you guys have
I remember
phones?"
this. Yeah, because it was a mobile game, right?
Yeah, it's also a terrible game. I played it.
Yep.
I don't know what problem it is. It's sort of like the collector's boosters are so
That's
ridiculous.
close. Like the Magic 30 stuff might be close to it.
Just because, again, I know how prices are going to go, and watching, like, I think it was yesterday, the professor opening a collector's boosters for Final Fantasy, and he did not earn his money back. He earned maybe like half of the money that you would have spent. You could have bought all the cards that he got for half the price, not in the collector's booster.
This is why you buy singles.
A bunch of those are probably going to drop in price as time goes by.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was using the prices then.
Like,
so the expensive ones aren't going to remain that.
As someone who has seen a lot of the Final Fantasy cards, they're not like amazing cards that are gonna be game breaking or shifting them outside of like a couple.
Yeah.
So most of them are gonna be like at most $20.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's a mess. We should keep going though, because there's a little bit more in the Wizards front.
I was about to say, speaking of Magic, or are we still have other?
Not quite yet. First off, we still have a few more D&D things, and the first off is that we have a good look at a D&D comic that Dark Horse is doing. So that's going to be interesting. I think we kind of talked about them doing stuff.
They were going to do Fool's Gold as well, which is
which
is based off a D&D campaign.
So it's the first one coming out, the fallbacks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Dark Horse is a great publisher for comics. The author of this, Greg Pak, is a very well-established comic writer.
Mm-hmm.
So this one will be probably pretty good.
And they're based on a previous novel series, I guess D&D novel series from Random House, so their characters are already established, in other media if you've read those. Again, like, I haven't read a D&D novel in years at this point in time.
But, yeah, it's been a hot minute.
So, these tend to be the more side things I'm more honestly supportive of at this point in time. Like people doing things like this.
Yeah, I mean, because that's the thing. The minimum amount of Wizards oversight, the better. There's still a lot of love for D&D, so there's still a lot of potential for things like this.
So, we did lose someone in the D&D creator space. A French RPG developer, Francois Freudville. I'm probably butchering this poor man's name horrifically. So apologies if I am. If anybody can try to correct my pronunciation. I'm, again, bad at language, even at English. So this is a man that helped co-wrote Oriental Ventures and Monster Manual 2 alongside Gary Gygax back in the early 80s. He ended up doing a lot of translations for French, for D&D rulebooks, and ended up going into writing a big book series and work on video games and comics and stuff like that. He would be considered very influential on the D&D space,
He is one of the guys who coined the term munchkinning, as a fun fact.
Yeah. So,
also, you pronounce it Francois.
Oh, that's Francois. Oh
Francois.
My god! It's like when you say Francois, I can say it.
The little C there is pronounced differently.
Yeah, it's like an SW, and then you got some
like,
French bullshit.
I can see it. Francois Freudville.
Hi, I took 10 years of French and remember none of it, so you're doing better than me.
I took like 5 years of German and like 4 years of Japanese. I know a little bit of both of them now. I haven't used them.
I can write in French still.
I took a class on conlangs in college and learned how to like all the little different signs. I just had to remember how to pronounce the little.
I know the most important thing if I ever once again go to Germany. Wo ist die Toilette?
That is pretty important. That is important.
It's one of the most important things you need to know. Just where to ask where the toilet is. If you're going anywhere, that's the critical one.
So true.
So, condolences to his family and his estate. So, and one more before we head on to the little magic section of it that we added on at the beginning here, and that is, hey, more people got laid off by Hasbro.
Oh.
Yeah,
gosh,
3%, right?
3%, another 150.
Tragically, this is very common when companies finish up big projects.
Yeah, I mean, this one's not
Sucks.
so bad, but, like, it is a point in time where we're seeing, like, weird points in time for the layoffs and stuff like that. And also
usually these
with,
happen at, like, the end of the year.
Yes.
Well, it's better than firing a bunch of people right before their holiday bonuses.
Yeah.
So they don't have to
definitely better.
I'm going to say, from the way this article portrays it, Hasbro's basically going to be like, it's totally the tariffs' fault, when the Hasbro, we've proven, is largely unaffected by that.
Yeah.
You can see.
No,
but,
absolutely.
you know,
Well, Hasbro does have some issues with it, but Wizards does not.
that's true.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the
sucks.
big names leaving the company then, too. It's just like, it's a weird mess of Hasbro and Wizards. Anyway,
they're joining Guaranteeing Press.
It's a transitioning period of uncertainty.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, I want to know what Darrington Press is. Why can't I not? Darrington Press is going to be doing, because they now have the big names.
Well, I did hear a little bit about this. So what's going to be on is what it seems like they're doing is they are doing multiple games rather than just Daggerheart. Basically, Jeremy Crawford and Chris Perkins are going to be there working on other projects, not Daggerheart. So they're rather than developing stuff for that, basically, Darrington Press is like being the smart thing and being like, well, instead of just putting our eggs in one basket, we're going to be like some of these other big publishing companies, aka
a diverse portfolio,
and all these others that tend to have a little bit more success. Diverse portfolio. Now, granted, like, even Paizo's done that a little bit with, like, we have Starfinder and Pathfinder. It's the same game, but it's two flavors of it, so they diversify, and that's helped them.
But you see, when you do that, you can't slap on the front of your rulebook "World's Greatest Role-Playing Game."
I mean, you can if one of them does significantly better than the others.
Just slap it on both, and then really, you're winning. So, you can just say these things and nothing matters.
That's true. I forget. There's a term for it legally where it's all like it's kind of unprovable. Therefore, you can say it.
You just say it.
So shall we hit up, because there apparently were some leaks on stuff for Magic. Now I did quickly look up here the actual release of stuff on the Avatar coming in November.
Did we not?
Which.
Oh, yeah, actually, the announcement for Critical Role, we should talk about that, because that was a thing. I don't think we announced that yet.
Oh. What?
Yeah, that was because it was announced on the 16th, which is this week. So that should have been this week.
I missed that then when I was looking up the news.
Hey guys, you've all heard this already, but some very important people left WotC and landed at a better company.
Oh, didn't we talk about this over last weekend?
No, that happened on Monday, Cantus.
Who else joined?
Not me.
We were just talking about it during the week, and I thought we talked about. Oh my god.
Anyways, hi. Chris Perkins and Jeremy Crawford landed at Darrington Press, aka the Critical Role Publishing Company.
Extra thing shoved into the docket.
Which is very good because WotC really needs competition.
They do.
Like, badly.
I mean, yeah, and they need more than just Paizo, because Paizo's been holding up the competition anvil for like a long time, and it's
the tragic thing is Pathfinder is so niche and hard to get into for a lot of people that it's not really like the best bet for a solid competitor, unfortunately.
Yeah, but that's the thing. They basically got all the people who didn't want to move on for 3.5.
True.
That has maintained a relatively large fan base.
Pathfinder also tragically has somewhat of a negative association with people who play D&D because crunch.
Yes.
Yep.
Especially when it comes to 5e. Although, but that's the thing. That's what I kind of like about Pathfinder 2e is it keeps a lot of the wide variety of decision making while removing a decent amount of the crunch. But most people associate Pathfinder OGL.
and again, like, even second edition is more complex than 5e, that's for sure. And that's the thing is, like, 5e is a very simple, very easy to pick up and play. As I said, like, if I was ever going to want to run a one-shot, I still today would probably pick up 5e if I'm going to run a one-shot. It's so very easy just to pick it up, you know, and be like, hey, here's the stuff.
My whole thing is that, yes, but just go for, like, I don't think I'm ever going to play 5e again. If I do anything, I'm going to play, Valiant, Tales of the Valiant, or Level Up 5e.
Yeah, I think I basically made our own version of 5e, so...
I mean, basically both of those are just offshoots anyway. They're basically the same thing.
See, I would have picked up 2014 anyway. I wouldn't have...
Yeah, no, same. And if I did play D&D, I'd probably want to play 2014 with some rules additions added in from the 2024.
Here's the wild thing about D&D 2024. As someone who's currently running it in tiny game and someone who's going to run it in a large game, it is largely identical.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are very few differences between it besides some rules, wordings, and class abilities. It is not justifiable to charge $60 for that book.
No, I agree. Like, I mean, I think they would have been better with a rules update book that was like $20.
Still, it's the place it's at. So congratulations to Chris and Jeremy for moving over to Daring Press.
I'm very happy you're free from Hasbro.
Yeah.
Thank God.
I honestly, because like, I think this week just blended together, and it was like we were talking about this so early on in the week. I thought it was last weekend.
That's fair.
Jesus. Just kind of like, I'll just say like, in the middle there.
Yeah. And honestly, I recommend Daggerheart to anyone who wants to try it. Like, it's a pretty good system. It's very. It's I would say it's even more narrative focused than D&D, which is nice. So it's definitely more on the freeform side of things rather than the mechanical side of things. But I think it actually just has a lot to go, especially if you're going to do a lot of if you're basically just. I think it'd be really good for playing on the go or playing. It's a really good game.
I will say, because if it's like hard, like it's a very card-based thing, I believe better in person.
True.
Until VTTs kind of catch up with having better card stuff. Cough, roll 20.
Roll 20's cards are actually not too bad and a lot more intuitive. Foundry's card system is garbage.
It needs to the VTTs need to get getting on those ones.
Yeah, there's a module I found that makes the card stuff better for Foundry, but it's still limited because of just the way Foundry handles cards. Yeah.
Anyway, shall we quickly hit on before we move on from the Wizardsy stuff, the brief thing about the Avatar stuff? Because apparently, not only are we getting Edge of Eternity's stuff coming out now, which is a week after Final Fantasy came out, we haven't heard anything about Spider-Man, which also, if we're hearing about Avatar before then, it does not necessarily make me feel great about it, but maybe also something with Disney, they can't do it.
It's weird. There's weird marketing stuff and weird contract things involved, I bet.
Well, it's like, what was it that some of the deals for printing some of these things go. I think we talked about it before. It's really tough to get them out in ways that you think about. For some of these, Universes Beyond is a show apparently of IP mess.
Yes.
Just figuring that out.
When you do a licensed product, you are very beholden to the licensor in a lot of ways.
Yeah. It's very weird because I can totally just imagine, just on the little bit of understanding I have based on the my tiny company that I work for and how they handle contracts and stuff, just a big company handling their big, like, oh, you know, like I could totally imagine them like putting in some weird clause just to make it so they have to do something odd if they want a discount, you know, or you know.
Oh,
you
that's
know?
right. I remember what we talked about. Is that we're not getting the Spider-Man set to Arena.
Yeah, we talked
They're
about
having-
that previously.
Yeah.
We're having a fake version of it because they can't
it's
legally.
So yeah, it's so fucking weird.
Mm-hmm. I remember that, but we did talk about that before. I also think that it's really weird in that it's going, and I remember bringing up that it's going to make understanding what cards are what when trying to build a deck a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
You already kind of have that problem anyways.
That's true.
You got to see Aang, who has a weird keyword called firebending, and there's
Yeah, I
other
don't know.
keywords.
Don't know what that means.
Yeah, we don't. It does something.
Considering there's a 2 next to it, I assume it's going to be something maybe like modular.
Mm-hmm.
Well, who knows? You know, in this day and age, you can't really read a card to figure out what it means.
And he becomes a 6/6 flyer that makes things mana
Also,
less
shout out-
to cast.
I get why they did it, but shout out to the fact that it has red, green, white, blue on one side, so it has 4 pips.
Mm-hmm.
Which anyone seeing this would be like, oh, okay, that's a 4 mana card. And then you flip it, and then there's 5 pips on the back. So why didn't you just put the 5th pip on the top there? Because in this magical game that's your literal most popular format called Commander, that matters.
Yes, Aang is a 5 mana commander, though you can't tell that unless you flip him.
Yeah, this is your literal most popular format because your 60 card formats all suck and are being strangled by both meta and your terrible pricing.
I
Yeah.
mean, there is a thing to this in that, like, you do only need those 4 colors to summon him.
True.
Yeah,
He's-
but because he's got the 5th black pip there, you could put black cards in your deck.
Yeah. And my point, though, is that, yeah, so he basically can be a 4-color or a 5-color card.
Now, obviously, because it's aesthetic, they obviously chose red, green, white, blue, because that's what if I remember the show correctly, I think is the representation for all bending types. I think earthbending is green. I've not seen the show in a very long time, though.
It's red, green, yeah, when air is white and water is blue.
The air is really kind of more yellowish, orangish, but
Yeah,
that's
it's
enough.
close
More
enough.
of a yellow, but
Yeah.
Close
but
enough.
white still works.
But otherwise, yes, the place is very color coded. And then, like, where does black mana come in? I don't know. It's there then. I think there was discussion in.
I think it's more
draw.
just spells.
Yeah, it was Jay and I talked about it a little bit, and they're like, this card design tells me nothing about what it actually does.
Yeah, I think the idea is just that it costs 1 less of every element.
Well,
Because,
Cast.
like, when he's
comment
not flipped... Yeah, sorry, you go ahead.
4 mana, or no, sorry, 5 mana, 4 nations is kind of a challenge.
I don't know what... Like, there's not a good representation of black mana in this universe, so, like, I don't know how you're going to even do that, first off. Unless you're including, like, stuff from Korra and
the closest I would think of is, like,
Kyoshi novels.
Yeah, the closest I would think of is the extra bending, such as lightning, metal, and water, air, and blood.
Maybe they could
those
make.
I could see.
Maybe
but...
they could make stuff that's spirit related black. That sometimes works.
Well, Spirit Relay would be more white, in my opinion.
But that's airbending now.
Yeah, it's just a mess. Like a visual representation. I also of the opinion, I mentioned this in the pre-show, I'm going to say it now. I truly don't think there's enough characters in this universe to make a full Magic set of, because eventually you're just going to start having to really, like, stretch what is a side character in this franchise.
Yeah, and the idea that it's a full set, I like, that's the thing. If this was a secret lair, totally, or even
If it
like
was if it was 2 commander, like 4 commander decks, I could see it.
yeah,
But it's a
I could see
full
that.
set.
Yeah.
To be fair,
I think it's going to be a very legendary light set.
Yeah.
And it's going to have
Actually,
a lot of, like, generic
well,
creatures.
I was about to say something, but then I realized it's kind of dumb. I was about to say, oh, well, I mean, have fun having all the airbenders be white, and then I remembered, oh, wait, there aren't any.
Oh, yeah, there are in Korra, but they're not going to do
I know.
Korra, for sure.
Are we sure they're not going to do anything with
Well, we
Korra?
don't know. Like, they haven't actually said.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I could totally see, what's the brother's name?
Toka.
Toka, thank you, sorry. Sokka being white.
Here's the thing, though, too.
He'd be blue because he's a waterbender nation guy.
Well, he's not a waterbender, though.
But he's from that nation.
He could be blue.
I would actually say he would make a good white-red.
Oh yeah, as far as his style goes, yes.
Okay. This is on top of, we're reaching the spoiler season for Edge of Eternities, and we just know what Edge of Eternities is at this point in time.
Yeah, we just learned what the hell that set is gonna be.
It was it's the space set up until now. And it was this is literally yesterday, they put a Planeswalker's Guide to it. There was like, oh, here's the setting. And I'm like, great, now we kind of have an idea about it.
That's a cool setting. I can't wait for it to be buried in marketing for Avatar like the other setting was by Final Fantasy.
Yep.
Or Spider-Man. Because Spider-Man's technically after that.
It's like, Magic's a mess.
Mm-hmm.
Completely ugly.
Actually, I'm looking at Edge of Eternities right now. I don't think we talked about this. It's cool.
Edge of Eternities does look really cool.
We'll probably revisit it when we know, most of the mechanics.
It's got my favorite villain, Tezzeret, in it.
I mean, they have a bunch of... They do have a bunch of sample cards out.
Yeah, the big thing we know about is the spaceship mechanic, which is the new mechanic there.
Yeah.
Which is,
It's basically crew, but different.
It's basically crew, but different, which... honestly, is a lot of mechanics in Magic. It's basically this, but different. They do that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, just purely look at the amount of counter types that exist in Magic, and some of those counter types come from maybe 2 cards.
Mm-hmm. Same thing, but different. Yeah. I guess Tezzeret's the closest thing to, a supervillain, even though, he really isn't.
He's the only surviving villain right now, I think. Well, no, there's that one core lady who's still kicking around.
But she doesn't have her
who got locked away in the thing.
But she doesn't have her spark.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter anymore because they can just go on whatever the Omen Path shit is.
I mean,
and just go anywhere in the universe.
She probably doesn't want to do that. She wants to continue to try to activate super weapons back in Zendikar and conquer the plane.
She's gonna go do that on roll throws darted board. Everyone's a clown. That's the set.
She's just gonna nuke the clouds.
Okay, I actually really like in this set the basic lands that they have because it's all like.
Well, yeah, the basic lands are quite nice.
Yeah, and islands are like space stations, and then you've got swamp, which is like a more desolate planet, rocky planet, and then you got plains, which is kind of more like a grassland planet. Mountains is a lava planet. Forest is a jungle planet.
I mean, the art's always on point. To be fair.
I do also like the legendary enchantment, the Super Void.
Yeah,
that's fair. It reminds me very much of Grave Pack, except it does, get sacrificed, but it does get an extra cool thing.
Do you want me to post the link to Edge of Eternity since we're talking about it?
Might as well post the link, yeah.
I'll post it.
I'm literally looking at it right now.
I struggle to be interested in Magic these days, but, because the last couple, mostly because March of the Machine left a really, really poor taste in my mouth, and then we got...
Agree.
Shit like Aether Drifts and stuff that I wasn't too keen on.
Agree.
So, this theming I'm cool with, because I'm a big fan of, visually, they're doing the sort of the golden age of sci-fi idea, which I do like visually, but I'm almost certain the story is going to be some nonsense where maybe Jace shows up to do something again and then he leaves.
It's one of these things is, having... Now, I haven't finished, but I've looked through a lot of the sets in the past weeks or so, because I've been kind of thinking about getting into some deck building, and I wanted to get myself familiarized with the last couple of years of sets, since I hadn't seen anything of them, And I'm not gonna lie, there are some great sets that have really great flavor, really great story, and really great cards. And then there are some that I'm not gonna lie, I liked the cards from some of these sets, but the flavor is just so terrible. Looking through, Duskmoor, Aether Trick, Thunder Junction, there are some really interesting cards there, but then when I, look at the flavor and the story, I'm like, this is awful!
I really love
mechanical
energy,
side
like
is neat.
The energy mechanic from I don't know if it started in Aether Drift. It was very present in Aether Drift. I really like that mechanic. I don't like the race car aesthetic of Aether Drift very much.
Yeah, it was just, why is it race cars? Like, I mean,
it's a multiversal drag race.
Even like reading up the story on it was just like, this is a story.
I don't know what happened in that story. I kind of stopped caring after Thunder Junction was just.
That's where we get the
Snake Lady does something and then kidnaps loot.
That's where we get the equipment planeswalker from.
Oh, that's where the Aether Spark. Yeah,
the Aether Spark. That was all about getting it.
Something.
I guess Amonkhet ended up with it. Look, I'd read up on the story. There was Jace there doing some stuff. Chandra participated because she totally wanted to get the Aether Spark for Nissa because they've been just hanging out, and they haven't found a way back to Zendikar because she can't planeswalk, and so she's just escorting her girlfriend through the multiverse, you know?
I'm just still very upset that they were like, by the way, we're taking most of the sparks in the universe, and this really cool character who can't control her, she's just fixed now. We're not going to deal with her anymore.
No, the sparkening stuff, like, it flavor-wise killed a lot of stuff.
I get why they did it. They should have just made less planeswalkers every year and called it a day.
Yes! They could have just not made more. They had plenty.
Yeah, you have so many planeswalkers, you can just use them. Ugh.
We should move on. We can pick up these topics. And there's still a few more to speak about, and we can talk about Izo, because we have the player's guide to Mythspeaker. This is the interesting part about it. It's taking place in Ibilidos, which is basically the fantastic. Well, okay, it's ancient Greece, but it's like the story version of ancient Greece. So it's like, mythic characters and stuff like that. And your characters show up and also then become mythic. And this is like one of those regions where it makes sense for being a mythic story because it is a realm of like demigods and stuff in your ancient Greek-inspired place. So, yeah, I think it's kind of neat. I'm interested to see how they do everything for it and how like mythic works here. Maybe this is the place where second edition's mythic works a little better because of the type of story it's telling.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well, I mean, the second edition mythic, I haven't like really tried it out, but it looks fine. It's just basically a free archetype you get.
Yeah, it's from what I've heard from people that have played with it, it is a free archetype, which isn't necessarily bad. It makes it mechanically simple to do in a lot of ways, but it has a very different feeling from first edition Mythic and what they were kind of originally looking at for Mythic, because it is
that makes sense.
Very mechanically simple, and you don't really add a whole lot of extra layers to a character. As a Mythic character, you are more powerful, but it is not like in first edition where it was like extra almost levels that jacked your character up to like 10 or something, you know?
Yeah.
It's like you don't have to compensate as heavy as you had in first edition in second edition when it comes to Mythic.
Yeah, which I think is a good thing.
It is.
I mean, I get the idea that people want to feel like their Mythic characters are more powerful, but mechanically, that's also kind of something that is a nightmare for GMs, so I get why that...
I understand both sides of it, and it's one of those things that's like, there is no good answer.
Yeah, like, it's kind of like this thing where it's all like, okay, I mean, it's more like they set it up, like, because that's the thing, I from what I understand, like, Mythic in the first game is just a nightmare to, like, work around.
It's something.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just like, yeah, it's just...
So yeah,
I mean, the numbers in Pathfinder 1E are already crazy.
I'm also not against this because we do have a good picture of Ibilidos, but there's a lot of questions about it. So, shining a light on a place that people don't tend to visit otherwise is really great, and usually an adventurer will do that. Hey, it's somewhere else in the world. It's not the Inner Sea region. So yeah. If you're interested in looking into it, the Adventure Path is coming out soon, and I do have the Player's Guide for Free. Alright. So we got a dead TTRPG. Turns out the Tomb Raider one, which I think we had talked about at one point in time, it's canceled for creative differences, and it involves Evil Hat Publishing. I feel like we've talked about Evil Hat when it comes to a lot of random stuff.
Wasn't
like
Evil
this.
Hat the one that got super, like, mega screwed over on oh god, what was that shitty movie called that Zack Snyder made?
Yes, the Zack Snyder sci-fi movie. Yes, it was. That's amongst many of the things. I feel bad both for Evil Hat, but also they do tend to somehow get into a lot of controversies. This is probably less controversial still, which is good, but it is a project that you have to cancel in the midst of developing it, and it's they have been technically working on this since February of last year.
Yeah,
that's pretty deep into development.
Here's the cool thing, though. Tomb Raider's cool, so that's why I think this one maybe works a little more. Versus half the other things they make.
Here's the other thing too. Depending on how it is, because it was disagreements with the licensor. Yeah. Hopefully what they can do is just take the bones of what was left here and make something else. Their own setting.
Yeah. It sucks, because this... Didn't Square, sell Tomb Raider to someone at some point to invest in the cryptocurrency?
Yes. Yes, they did. Let me find out who owns rights.
Does anyone... I don't know who currently owns it.
I'm looking that up.
But this sucks, because Tomb Raider's awesome. It's a really cool, I don't want to say setting, because it's just Earth, but kind of is a setting.
Oh! It was Embracer. So now
that makes sense that this got screwed over.
Yeah, and now it's CDE Entertainment, which I guess is a subsidiary of Embracer.
Yeah, no.
It's the video game side that when it broke apart.
Makes a lot of sense now. Rest in peace, Embracer.
Yeah, and the current owners they couldn't get an agreement with it, so I don't know what direction.
Oh yeah, I mean, that kind of also happened with a bunch of Lord of the Rings products a couple years ago.
So, I do recall again. I think last year we kind of talked about this one a little bit, and I thought
announced last year or a couple years ago.
Yeah, and I thought it would have been. It was an interesting enough idea. I'm kind of sad that we're not getting much more, but
yeah,
it was one of those franchises. It could work for a modern day setting. You're not Lara Croft, but you definitely can be a character doing something similar, and that could have been some good stories there.
True.
So, R.I.P. Just because it's kind of interesting that, of course, they had to do it. There is another version of Corp Borg, and this one is Corp Borg.
Yeah.
Because of course they had to do that just because it sounds funny, and it's I guess supposed to be it's a art punk corporate landscape where it's you really are playing up the evil corporation, but it's sort of evil corporations out in the open. Everybody, if corporations are evil, they really are, and they don't hide it.
That's just
kind of
so.
Yeah, I was about to say
that's just living in America. Oh boy, I can't wait to play my favorite employee of my favorite corporation, the Nestle Corp.
Well, apparently they also do blood sacrifices and cult rituals, so it is a little bit more.
Look, you could tell me that Nestle does that, and I believe you at this point.
Same. I mean. What is a blood sacrifice if not a diamond mine?
Exactly, or stealing people's water.
I like how it's you do 6 different classes, including salesman, engineer, and designer. rules for using office weaponry, including paper cutter blade, coffee mug, and the always devastating keyboard.
True.
God. And a D66 chart for urgent emails!
Yeah.
Oh, I feel so real. Oh, God. Anyway,
I mean,
it's...
one of them is urgent. I was just urgent. We have something due in 50 days. You better get started on that. It's like, but you know.
That's 50 days from now. No. Urgent. So that's a thing. We are also getting a starter set for Vaesen, my Free League press. So Vaesen, I think we've talked about here and there. It's the Nordic RPG that they've done some material for, and they're getting a starter set for it for $30. So, you know, these usually are things that I definitely like to shout out, because starter sets traditionally are pretty good places to get an idea of an RPG. It depends on the starter set, though, too. Some of them are better than others. You know? They aren't always made the same. It's kind of like with, like, quick plays and stuff like that. Those aren't always made the same. There are some pretty bad ones.
Yeah.
So I can't say this is going to be a super great starter set, but it's a good place to go to for a lot of games to have it. So, it's got a pretty decent amount of stuff. So if you were interested in a little bit of Nordic horror RPG, and you just didn't want to dive right in, maybe getting the starter out in October would be a good idea. Alright. So, I liked this because it was very similar to what Wizards ended up doing for... Was it Three Dragon Ante? Yes, because Three Dragon Ante is a thing in D&D games, and you can also play it in real life. So apparently there's Starfinder Infinity deck, which has 4 different games, which are supposed to be played in pack.
It is Infinity deck.
Yeah, which are supposed to be played.
I wasn't gonna correct him. I just let him have that one.
Okay.
English not work very good. Infinity deck card game. Yes, there you go. Thank you. Maybe I said it correctly. Anyway, there's apparently 4 different games you can play with the product as you buy it. A gambling game, a card collecting competition, 2-player smuggler versus security, and jobs for hire race game, which is kind of interesting too. And the fact that it's supposed to be a in Starfinder game that they play. You know, I guess.
Yep.
I guess when you're in like deep space travel, having one deck you could play 4 games of is one of those convenient things. It's sort of like those like foldable like sets that have like checkers and chess in them, so you can play both of them or something, you know.
Or how about a standard deck of cards which has like 50 games you could play with it?
What are you talking about? Those don't exist anymore. Lies. Gone from time and space. We're destroyed with Galarian.
Those aren't
I want to
real.
know what I would find very interesting if they made a bunch of card games you can play with hero cards.
Oh god, that'd be interesting though too.
That would be really cool.
Apparently this is very, though, deck of cards coded, so I'm sure you could, like, come up with other games for it, or they could introduce more of them. Because it's apparently 10 numbered cards in each of 5 suits with 15 special face cards.
Got it. So it is very much just a deck of cards, but different.
Yes. You know, its own unique way of doing things, but it is very coded to a deck of cards. So yes, I find these fun when they come out with, like, you know, games in universe and put them out in actual games. So, fun little things. That'll be out soon. If you're interested. As we reach towards the end of our news, we can talk about the mighty and powerful Cat Fluxx.
Yeah, more Fluxx.
It's Cat Fluxx, though. Where it's good for cat. I'm a cat owner. I love a good cat. You know, I'm sorry. This is up my thing, even though, like, it is much more family friendly. We just have to have some cats. And you can have zoomies, and they could move around the different players. Or, you know, there's objects to shelf that must be pushed off. Look, you know, it's... I just wanted to say it because I like cats, and it's a Cat Fluxx, and it's funny. It's $20. Fluxx is fun. I like fun.
I'm still waiting for them to make one called What the Fluxx? have no idea what the theme would be, but I'm waiting for it.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Fluxx. So a game called Rivers of London is going to the United States. So this is a Chaosium game, and have we talked about Rivers of London? I could not remember for the life of me if we've talked about it before as one of Chaosium's other games.
No idea. I haven't heard of this before.
It is a game that uses...
Even being someone who watches Chaosium semi frequently.
Yes. I think it's supposed to use their basic RPG system. Yes, it does. It uses the basic roleplay. So it is based on their system. And basically, you're supposed to take place of London's Metropolitan Police Service's special magic grants. So,
got it.
So this is an interesting one because it's basically like, if you want to do stuff other than in London, you can go to the US and here's some rules for the Americas. So like cryptid hunting in America, or, doing various weird magical stuff there. I mean... Got it. I think it's fine. That's an easy one because of a lot of, connections. It being basically, England and United States there, kind of logically. But I think it adds for a good idea for, like, trying in other parts of the world during whatever time period this is supposed to be set in, which I'm not actually sure the time it's supposed to be. I don't... Does it look modern? But I also don't know. It could be kind of modern. Like, the picture of the book here could be semi-modern, but it's really hard to tell if it's, like, actually is, or if it's, like, near, like, 50s, 60s, or anything like that.
Oh, I'm looking at the setting.
I'm trying to, too. Because it looks, in my opinion, it looks like the 1900s, like early 1900s, or mid 1900s, probably, like post World War II.
Some of it looks a little later, but it doesn't feel like expressly modern. Maybe like
I presume it's based on the book series.
Oh, if there's a book series,
it shares a name.
Yes, then I assume it is based on that.
Which the book series Wikipedia doesn't really tell me when this is set.
I guess it's supposed to be relatively modern day, but it's probably set in a way that doesn't need an exact date. I feel like that's kind of what it's maybe do.
Yeah.
It's okay. So there are like references to like older and newer stuff.
Looks like it bounces around.
Yeah,
that might make sense.
Eras.
Yeah. So because it's basically based upon this idea of being like a magical police officer. So.
Internal chronology. So books based on internal chronology starts in the 1920s and goes to 2016.
Okay.
But could be later. Basically, that's only the last one that has a date. I assume it goes further after that. So yeah. So I think it does bounce around, like they're not all in the same place. But yeah, so the time frame has a lot of different. So it bounces around. Well, yeah. So because I think the most recent book, because there's one that was not the most recent, but one of the more recent books released in 2024 is set in 1920s. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So yeah, it bounces around, but like it seems like some of the more the earliest ones seem to be kind of modern. So like the one released in 2011 took place in 2012.
Gotcha. It's interesting. But again, like I guess you can say it's like a semi-modern. It's based that you could probably do it a little bit more period, but definitely could just play it in modern because that's mostly probably where it's focused in general. I'd assume then, and then it's just if you want to do some stuff in America, doing the same thing. Yeah, cool. All right, our final news topic, then, just to quickly run into that, is am I going to pronounce this correctly?
I bet you won't.
Wait, I'm going to try this here.
I got you.
Saturnine Terminator.
Nope.
Saturnine Terminator.
Saturnine.
Damn it.
I got it.
Saturnine Terminator. I was close. I was a little off.
Yes,
I saw Saturn in there, and I'm like,
these
yes.
were leaked a while ago on Facebook Marketplace. But we getting an actual look at the kit. It's they're Saturnite Terminators. They've got the big pauldrons. They look big and stompy. They got the big plasma gun.
Mm-hmm.
You can put flamers on them. I think the expected painting kit, the one they're probably going to want you to do, is the Salamanders and Iron Warriors, because those two are featured very heavily in the Horus Heresy 3rd Edition animated trailer.
Okay.
Then you get a cool dude called the Praetor, who has a big, I presume, thunder hammer.
Mm.
I'd be one of those people who paints all my armies, and like, if I ever did get into this, I'd be one of those people who painted all my armies with like a similar color scheme.
Yes.
Yeah, most people do that because thankfully Games Workshop doesn't force you to buy multiple armies to play multiple different Space Marine chapters.
I guess that's good, is if it's basically a similar type of unit, you basically can have just one and have it represent that different unit.
Like if it's a Space Marine dude, all Space Marines are functionally the same, except the various codices have different rules for specific chapters.
Mm. But basically, like, you can kind of interchange units if you need to. Like,
yeah, I mean, I feel like if you need to, you can say, okay, these guys are flamers, even though this type of unit is a flamer.
For the most part, you can, or you can get like a very quick and cheap conversion kit and just change the gun out.
Mm.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's neat. So some things you can do there. Cool.
Yeah, Saturnite are the goofy-looking ones. They have those really big pauldrons.
They are. That is a very interesting.
They're very goofy. Hold on, there's a really good meme.
Uh-huh.
Let me find it.
Mm-hmm.
And here it is. I'll post it. Chat, you don't get to see it, chat. It's got an iFunny watermark, so you don't have to look at it.
I'll have to look at it. I'll get my phone here. Look at it. Not in the screen.
Happy my pauldron's focused. Okay.
That is,
That's canonical artwork, by the way. That's a real dude.
I thought it was a trade. I'm not gonna lie.
No, that's a guy.
I know, but like, just looking at it first for like a glance until like, you know, I thought about it, and when we were talking about it, I'm like, if I had just seen this picture, I would have thought trade.
No, that's just a dude.
God, that's a thing. Wow. So, there you go. There's some news this week. There's some interesting stuff.
There we go.
Shall we dive into our deeper discussion topic for today, which is an interesting one that we kind of, I think, had hinted about in previous weeks, quite a while ago, and I kind of wanted to go more in depth about it. And today I wanted to discuss what it is that when you figure out when you should make a map and when you should just stick to theory of the mind. Because that's kind of like a big decision for a lot of people, because certainly speaking, you know, you can split between them, you can go all maps, but like, most of us out there traditionally split a little bit between it, you know? We don't go all maps for everything, and, you know, the question of when are you supposed to do that is a question that can be very relevant.
All maps, all the time.
Look, that's you! That's you!
For me specifically, I will typically not use a dedicated battle map. Panthers, you've been in my games. You know, when I have a battle, I just pull out generic forest map number 42.
Yes.
The only time I'll use a map is if it's like a dungeon.
Yeah,
I've made
specifically
thousands
like
of maps.
because
I've maybe used 2.
I can be very descriptive in my wording.
Mhm.
But if it's like a dungeon players are going through where combat needs to be a little more tight, that's when I'll really use like maps and I'll make my own. But for like the average party goes to a tavern, you don't need a tavern map. Everyone knows what a fantasy tavern looks like.
And the thing is,
I mean,
depending on the nature of a combat, you don't always have to need to pull out like a map for just a random battle. Like even that like generic battle map that you like talk about, you don't always have to pull that out. And I think it's like for very simple battles, it's just understanding how that battle's going to be can be like, up to you.
Yeah. Like, okay, to be serious here for a second though, my personal thought is it's almost entirely up to taste as a GM. It's kind of an answer to the question about when you should or when you shouldn't. If you like having battle maps for everything like I do, you should have them for everything. If you don't, then don't.
Yeah.
We live in the day and age where you can go on one of many subreddits where people put maps up for people to use as well, so it's a little bit easier these days as well.
You can easily like look up in a lot of places and people will provide maps.
Kind of gone are the days of let me grab this graph paper and we'll just draw the dungeon out as we walk.
I think that's the other thing about this entire thing, which is a good reason to kind of talk about it, is because it's so easy nowadays to get maps. Hey, we talked about the free maps for free RPG.
I was about to say, yeah. So basically, those are 5 variant maps. Those are 5 maps, each with about like 30 variants. Here's an orc encampment. Here's just the background, so you can use kind of more of a desert landscape. Here's the orc encampment, but it's flooded. Here's the orc encampment, but it's raining. Here's the orc encampment, but it's snowing. Here's the orc encampment, but it's destroyed. That's what Citizen Peku does.
Yeah.
You buy one thing and you get like 50 variants. It's wonderful. There are 5 fantasy and 5 sci-fi. So it's not just 5. But yeah,
I think
we both have all those variants.
It comes down to me for how like specifically unique you need a thing to be, versus how like it's a tomb dungeon, right? If your dungeon is very specific, it might be better to draw some boxes and then use theater of the mind for the rest, because you can combine the two.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't actually use maps for everything as much as I want to. That's a lot of effort and time to put into things. Yeah.
It comes down to that maps can be very helpful to it's spatial awareness and trying to explain that spatial awareness to your players. And if they don't need that spatial awareness, it doesn't matter. Like certainly speaking, there are plenty of places that, if my players get into a fight with, they might not need a map. Like, I have that forest map. If you fight something in a forest, I can just pull that out and throw that in there.
Very nice to just have a generic terrain map.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good way to handle it. I actually think. Like, there was a for his games, like we literally were on a river and we fought, I think 5 different battles on the river. He used the same map every time, and then so it worked. And he was just like, oh yeah, by the way, this side, this side doesn't exist because it's a cliff, so just you can't go to that side. It was like basically he said one time where it's just like so it's like that's how it goes.
It's a thing that not diving into we're kind of talking about map sources here, so it's sort of like if you want to use a map, I think it's just the statement of if you want to use a map, they aren't that difficult to find nowadays, or you can just make one if you want to. That's the kind of thing. Is like you have that option to put a map wherever you want to. But if you're someone that's going to ask the question is should I use a map here, or should I just stick with theater of the mind? I think it's, for one thing, you have to ask what kind of system you're playing. There are certain systems that are better with theater of the mind than others. That's a big question to begin with. And then the other question would be, how complex is the fight you're having? The more complex the fight, the better a map would be.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say, and I want to say another thing where there are actually some systems where maps are detrimental. I would argue well, I wouldn't say it's detrimental with Daggerheart, but Daggerheart is very much one where you just do things. Like, you do not need a map, because it's, but you can have, but I would argue for a game like that, you don't use a map for the actual combat, but you use a map if you want to, like, display a location. So you basically be like, okay, there's you'd probably just quickly draw out barrel over here, a light fixture here, etc. You don't need to be specific, but just to kind of get people an idea of the layout. I do think that is one of the bigger benefits of maps, is that when you have a map, everyone's now imagining the same area.
Yeah. You are combining,
and that's
the
important
imagination.
In some cases.
Yeah, it can be. I was going to say, any game that has a band-based range, maps don't necessarily help at once. Like Star Trek Adventures, where you are at, like, far, medium, or close range, it's sort of like, that's what you are. You state that. You move your character to there. You don't necessarily need to have yourself on a map, because that doesn't matter very much. And, like, if there is stuff there, you interact with it, and you ask your person in charge what's there,
Wrath and Glory is another one that is where maps are not the most helpful, because Wrath and Glory has a mechanic where a player can spend a glory point to add something to a scene, whether it be a narrative thing or a combat thing. And to really, like, play properly with a map, you'd have to, like, have assets ready to, like, your players, like, okay, they're behind that cover shooting us. All right, I spend this point. We're at a hangar. Is there, like, fuel barrels behind them? Right? Yeah. Wrath and Glory kind of has very dynamic map changes like that.
You can, well, see, again, I think that's still fine with a map. You could just basically draw it in. Like, I think it's very important that whatever tool you use has a drawing tool. Like, I mean, I'm talking mostly digital stuff, because, so you can just draw circles.
Even in real life, if you're using some kind of, like, printed map, or, like, if you drew something on, like, a grid, you could do kind of what I did, and, like, have some Legos or some dice and be like, here's a barrel. You placed it here, something like that. Just get some D6s, put them back there.
Companies that produce maps do them, like, laminated, so you can draw them with a little marker.
Yeah.
Yep.
My many use of, like, random objects in RPG games where we're physically there is very well known in circles with Joe and Blaze. Just sometimes you got to improvise in that situation, and it's the same kind of thing. If again, different systems, different necessity for physical maps versus just doing Fear of the Mind. And once you understand that in your system, you do still have to ask those questions, because even in a system where Fear of the Mind is better, a very complex scene, a map might help for it. Because there might be details that would be lost that players would be important to them. If an enemy is taking care of because you, as the person running it, can remember all the details and have the enemy take advantage of the terrain. If it's terrain that both sides could take advantage of, if your players don't recognize that, they can get screwed.
Yeah.
And again,
I mean,
complexity of the scene makes a difference.
It does. And it also depends on how creative your players are. Like, if you, as a GM, can be very creative and basically be like, okay, he's going to kick down a barrel and kick it in your direction, and players will be like, what? There was a barrel? It's like, well, you can imagine one. What do you met? Like, players can, like, I feel like it depends. Like, if your players aren't going to be creative, in some cases, it can actually be beneficial to have a map, because then they can see what's there and make decisions off of it, rather than having to imagine the scene and make decisions off of that.
Another thing I will note as to the imagination, there are people who cannot conjure images of things in their mind as well.
Yeah.
So maps do help, though. I have one of those people in my playgroup. So having maps helps them a lot.
Yeah.
That's knowing your players, too, right?
Yeah.
That's from years of playing with this person, just knowing this helps them a little bit more.
And maps help me because, well, I say that, but I can also basically be like, okay, what's here, or like, is there something like this? So I'm probably not on that. But yeah, no, there are people though who are. I always find them helpful because I feel like I can make assumptions rather than ask questions constantly.
No, absolutely. When it's like a structured, when the environment needs to be very structured, I feel that is when a map is at its most helpful for me.
Yeah.
It's like, if say we're doing a dungeon in one of your games, Fantas, and like you didn't get a map and you're describing a dungeon, I'm not gonna have the spatial awareness to know where the hell I am in this dungeon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
If the dungeon's too complex, that definitely will not work.
Even when we were doing the cave thing with the rolls, I eventually was very lost, knowing, all right, where the fuck are we and how big is this cave?
What's really funny is I had a visual image the whole time, so it's all like, oh, we traveled through here. Like, I added in between bits in my own mind because I'm just a mapper, so I like that. But I also knew it was important, which is why I didn't ask about it or get it clarified.
What I was imagining was, this is like in, I think it's like West Virginia, United States, there's that like network of caves and stuff all over the place.
Caves where you go out in the woods and you're never seen again. Yes,
but basically there's like caves that are interlinked and networked all over that area, and that's what I kind of imagined. You were kind of wandering around. Just to make it sound even more awful that you were just wandering at this place, but basically you were following kind of a trail in there.
Hey, PSA chap, if you ever visit the wonderful region called Appalachia, don't go in the woods. Because there is a pretty high chance you will fall in a cave and never be seen again.
Yep.
Interesting.
Go with people.
Yeah, go with people, stick to trails, and just, don't wander off. If you hear things in the woods that sound like people that might not be people, don't go there, because a lot of animals in this area can mimic human sounds.
Also, like, as much as they are not grizzlies, there are plenty of black bears up in the
also
mountains.
Mountain lions.
Oh, that's true, mountain lions.
And mountain lions sound like a screaming woman.
Yeah, and coyotes too, but they're, again, the black bear and coyote, less threatening than the mountain lion, but still not something to trifle with. A bear's a bear.
A bear is a bear.
I feel like coyotes are pretty distinct, because literally, I heard a coyote literally on my walk like 2 days ago.
You will generally know when you hear a coyote.
Yeah. But, again, that's going central Pennsylvania, up into the depths of Appalachia,
because, like, literally, I had to walk next to a woman because she was too afraid to walk by that bush where the coyote noises were coming from. So I had to, like, walk backwards a little bit to, like, basically make her feel safe as she passed by the area. So I'm like, yeah.
And the weird thing about a mountain range, especially one as worn down as the Appalachians, is technically speaking, I'm kind of in them, even though I'm like on the far edge of them.
Look, man, I've had to like actually explain to people, hey, those cool like warnings in Appalachia are weird. Like, hey, don't fucking go in those woods. You'll die. That's real.
Yeah. And the deeper and more into that territory you get, the worse it gets. Like,
it's not a Bigfoot that's going to get you. It's going to be a cave or a wolf or a bear.
Even in my region, I'd say like, you are on the edge of things. It's probably not too bad, but you still have to kind of keep an eye out because you do not know what could be out in the deep woods. Like, leaving the counties and stuff of southeastern Pennsylvania. You start going like west, northwest, and it gets crazy and nowhere fast.
Yeah, if you ever want to like trip yourself out, there's a really nice map which shows like a lot of missing people report. Yeah, if you ever lay that over the cave map of North America, it's very similar. Weird.
Turns out people just fall into caves a lot.
A lot of people just fall into caves.
I mean, or they go, oh, I'm going to take a quick peek, and then something happens.
Yeah, or they are cave splunkers like idiots.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. I watched a video all about...
Yeah, that's like my biggest fear is caves.
Yeah. There's memes where it's all like someone shoves their a shoe into like
legitimately
a hole,
horrifying.
And they're like...
That's
and
horrifying.
they're like, oh look, I found a caver in my house.
Those things like actually scare me.
And it's like a hole that big that they just shove the shoe into.
It gives me anxiety.
Like I the most cave thing I'll probably go to is like if I wanted to I could probably travel and go visit, I think it's Lost River Caverns, which are in Hellertown, which again is right outside of Bethlehem, which is next to Allentown. Don't ask. Bethlenem's next to Hellertown. I know, it's Pennsylvania. Hell is next to Bethlehem. Don't worry about it. Anyway, there's a cavern there. Lost River Caverns. It is something you can visit. It is nice giant caverns. You can go into a cave and not be claustrophobic.
There are cave museums.
But
and
there are places there that they don't have people go to because they're like, hey, yeah, no, those are caves you go get stuck in.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have you go to the caves you can walk in. Don't go there. Don't be an idiot.
And actually, the big issue isn't even like falling into a hole that's a cave. It's actually sinkholes where your weight now caves in something that makes you fall into somewhere.
Anyways,
does remind. Sorry, quick side tangent on that side tangent before we finish up. That does remind me. For a while, there were a bunch of sinkholes over my grandmother's because everybody had forgotten that there were old copper mines in that region she was living in, and they kept falling like sinkholing for a while.
Yep.
They did fill them in then, but it was a thing for a while. There were sinkholes, old mines that people forgot about.
Yep.
So. Again, getting back to the entire thing here is that, I think it's... When you ask your questions, you really do have to look at what you need for your game, too. If you really love having maps or putting maps together, giving the extra effort to... Whether that is looking online for a source, getting a source online and putting it together in whatever virtual program you're doing, or printing it out or something like that for your games if you're doing it in IRL... as rare as it is nowadays, occasionally people still do that. You kind of ask that question, do you need that map? Is it important for my game? And what does it add to my game, too? Because again, it's like, theater of the mind is a good way if you can give a good description and you are confident in your abilities to display an image in your players' minds for them to not need that. Because basically the idea is you're presenting such a picture, they know what's going on.
Yeah. And
okay.
Yeah, I'm just someone who basically feels like it really funny enough, I actually feel like I can be descriptive enough to not need a map. The reason I like maps though is more because it just makes it very clear, like what direction you're facing, where you're at. It gives a very good sense of spatial awareness that a lot of people don't. Because I feel like it's just, some people just don't have that. Like, even if you describe it well, some people have issues with that.
For me, running the game, maps do tend to sometimes help me. Because on more complex things that are going on, I sometimes have trouble keeping track of everything in my own brain at the same time. It's sort of like, that's for me then, because it's keeping track of the monsters, the enemy, the players, what they're doing, what they have as abilities, what's going on in the battlefield, on top of all the positioning on everything. That can kind of be overwhelming sometimes too, so sometimes the map is for you.
Yep.
There's a difference between fighting one creature and 4. And that can be also keeping track of all of them and where they are. And that can help with that, especially on that comes down to complex battles. It's not only complex for the players, it can be complex for you.
I mean, my big whole thing with maps is I just really think if you have the interest, the ability, well, I'm going to say, first and foremost, if you have the ability to do so, do it. If you have the interest to do so, even better. Making maps is a whole nother thing, but getting maps online, I think it's still important.
Yeah.
I think Joe could do a little bit better at his maps.
Look,
I have no idea. I'm like, how did you get this extremely blurry image? I feel like there are sources you could go to that are better.
It's the funny thing that I talked about it now a few times, and it's the map that you've revisited in Fall of Avonswell. I basically just put together the stuff in Donjon and kept hitting the randomize button until I found a map I liked,
Yep.
And then I just basically was like, oh, you give me details on what these rooms are. Out the window! This is what's here now.
Yeah, no, and I do like Donjon for that. It's very nice. You really can do, and then there's a ton of ones for making your own if you want to go that route. random ones are great for dungeons. You got plenty of sources for like overland stuff usually, or big set pieces. You know, Sizpek, who we've talked about. I still need to go through. See, like honestly, part of me is just like the next time I have like vacation time, I just want to basically be like, okay, I'm going to subscribe to them, subscribe to their Patreon, download everything absolutely possible, and then maybe keep subscribing. It depends.
Yeah. Well, it's like, but also sometimes it isn't easy to find a map. Like finding the forest, that's easy. Finding Alchemical Chimera Lab. That would be the description of the place that it was. Alchemical Chimera Lab. And I'm like, you're not going to find that.
You actually might be able to.
Maybe.
Yeah, well, you can, and even then, you could just find a laboratory, you know?
Yeah, true, but the amount of laboratories that are very technology coded, unfortunately, but because I was looking around for a while, just at maps and stuff like that. And it's just unfortunate that when you say, like, laboratory, they do tend to go towards less, you know, like, magical, alchemical.
Yep, I got around that by just typing alchemical laboratory TTRPG. And now they're all fantasy-based.
Mm-hmm. Look, maybe I'm just bad at searching for things. Have you ever thought about that?
I am uniquely good at searching at things, so I get it.
Mm-hmm. There's sometimes when I can find things, and sometimes I can't, and it's a roll the dice.
Sure.
But again, I think it also comes back down to is if you just don't want to put a map together or don't feel like it, especially if it's like a sudden battle, don't bother. You know, if you don't have something ready, don't get stressed out about it. You can just theater the mind. You know, that's another thing too, is, you know, you just be like, you're fighting an ogre. Cool. He's 20 feet from you. Great. You guys were clumped up? Great. I don't have to do any math. I don't have to look at it. You move 20 feet and engage each other. Whoever goes first starts the battle. There we go. Probably there's some trees around, like if your rogue wants to get some, like, you know, cover or something. But other than that, cool. You know, you can just describe something very easy and simple. And, you know, yes, if you have that easy map available, sometimes that is also the thing too. You know, it's just the default map. But, you know, maybe you're in a place that the default map doesn't feel appropriate also, and then you're just like, this default.
Yeah, I mean, I just find that 9 times out of 10, your players will appreciate having a map. Mm-hmm. In fact, I'm gonna say 99 times out of 100, players appreciate a map, but it's just not necessary, and players are fine without it most of the time. It really. I feel like the only time maps become necessary are when you have a very tactical system, such as Pathfinder 2E. You kind of need a map at least for battles.
2E definitely is a lot more like that. Like, it's the same thing with like D&D 4E. If you ever go back and play that one, which I do actually, I think at this point in time, could recommend with a VTT, trying it out at very least. It is pure tactical gameplay. You need a map for that. Like, having played through that for like 4 or 5, like we played through, like, I think we got to the 4th out of 9 adventures. They had like a 9 adventure series in 4th edition that we were supposed to go fight Orcus. We got to like 4 or 5, I think it was, and yeah, having played through that, dip far into it, no, you very often, like, that one is one of the ones where I can point out and be like, yeah, 99% of the time, you need a map for that system. Unfortunately. And again, that's knowing the system. You understanding that system, know that. And we did not have a VTT. We basically had to put together with dice and Legos and stuff, maps on a grid every time we had to have a battle. It was a bitch.
Okay.
It was not great, but we did it.
Tantus, you need to. I'm also going to talk about this. I just found something. I've never actually thought to like look here, but I just found it, and it's amazing. Reddit.com r/battle maps.
Yeah,
people just post battle maps
frequently.
I should really check that one out. Now this was suggested. I haven't really checked that one out.
I mean, I've always been someone who like makes my own, so that's why I never thought about something like this. But I'm just posting it now.
I don't do a lot of like Reddit-related stuff, except like incidentally. It's sort of like
I just ran across it looking up maps. So
it tends to be really like if I'm looking up something and it suggests a Reddit post that seems appropriate, that's where I get to it. Otherwise, I don't usually go to Reddit. It has uses.
But then like looking through it, and then there's just a bunch like there's a really cool battle map that's like a foresty area that you might be able to use as an alternate. I found one that's literally an alchemy lab on here.
Again, that's knowing your sources and also like checking them out. You know, that definitely is one of those things that can be very helpful.
Yeah, there are a lot of free sources. I think people get intimidated by the idea that wait, is this the room in... No, it's not. For a second I thought it was this one was a Baldur's Gate 3 map, but it wasn't. At first glance I thought it was, but anyway, yeah, there's a lot of good maps here. Yeah, we should point this out to Joe too, so he might actually get some better ones. Because he always finds the blurriest image, and I have no idea how. Like,
don't ask me on that one.
Yeah, every map he has is just this blurry thing where you can barely tell what's going on in the background. I'm like,
I feel like this is something that like I had to learn myself to do, and maybe he doesn't do that. Is like, you know, when you find an image, opening up the original source, so sometimes it's bigger. Maybe he saves it smaller.
You can also right-click and say search Google for image and find the image source.
Well, I'm just saying, like Google, making sure to open up the larger image or something too.
Yeah, because if you search image with Google Lens, oftentimes it will find the full image as like from another source. Like it searches for the image.
Also, sometimes just finding a bigger copy of an image that's online, you're like, I just want a bigger copy. Can't you show up ever? God damn it. Anyway.
Yep.
I think that's a good point in time to kind of hit up this one. I just kind of wanted to visit this as a kind of like, because we've talked about both these things and kind of like, just kind of talking about understanding when and where to do these, use the two sides of the mapping coin, and like, you know, just keep your sources open either way so you know what you're doing. There you go.
Yeah. I just think there are so many options for maps that you... I don't want to say you don't have an excuse, but you don't have a very good excuse. You don't have a lot of excuses. I think there are valuable excuses, but...
Yes. There are sometimes reasons not to, but it depends on, like, you know, the situation you're in. And also, again, sometimes that's just your preference. Maybe you're just like, I don't think I need a map here. There you go. You know? Sometimes you say it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's not always necessary. I will 100% agree with that. It also depends heavily on the system you use. But I honestly, my whole thought is, it's generally worth doing. You know, if you can.
All right. Shall we talk about our week in gaming? So, did anybody have any kind of adventures last Sunday?
No, I didn't do anything Sunday.
Here's the thing.
Sunday, we did not have Joe last Sunday.
Yeah, we didn't. We have it tomorrow. I've played some Magic this week, but I could not tell you all the days that I played Magic this week.
I played it a couple days.
Yeah, is that I know I stopped by to do Magic with you guys, and I played a little bit with Joe and Blaze. Joe's ended up making a non-commander commander deck because he got inspired by one of the pre-mades, a Hobbit food deck, and he made a 99 card one. And I'm like, you are almost the commander deck.
You're almost there. You need just put a commander in there.
And singleton some stuff, probably. But I know me. I'm very single heavy when I build decks anyway, so I you know, I think that's just the nature of my deck.
I've mostly been playing around with Final Fantasy cards. It's the new hotness, judging them. They're all quite good. I made an Urza deck, though, with Urza Chief Artificer, which is the guy who on your admin step you make a 0/0 colorless construct dude who gets +1/+1 for each other artifact. He's he's a cool guy. Urza is not Magic's greatest villain. He definitely didn't do anything wrong.
He definitely did not commit multiple genocides
Isn't
in the name of killing off
Magic
the
the Gathering is Hitler. he, you know, I'm starting to think this Urza guy's kind of a bad dude.
It's like there's stuff you said there, and I'm like, I don't know if I can say either way on that one. Because he's just such a bad dude, and did a lot of horrible things.
He's pretty bad.
It's this weird thing of, like, he had good intentions by, like, you know, hey,
Did
the Phyrexians are... He wanted to stop the Phyrexians, and they were... worse. Technically. Just by a little bit.
Kinda, sorta. Yeah, this Urza deck is dumb, because in the Magic set they released, and I'm sure you aware, 16 different printings of Sid. And you can put all 16 in a deck legally. So I have 16 Sids in this deck. Because you can't put them all out at the same time, but their abilities work from when they're in the graveyard.
You know what you could do? And I'm going to say this, just to be funny. Play with, like, Mirror Gallery, or one of those things you can have any number of
legends. I was considering it.
And then you could just have all the Sids in play.
Because it's just like, they did give me 16 Sid cards of varying price.
I like that they're in varying price. And
some of them are a little more expensive than the others.
I guess whoever's popular. Damn it. Sid from Final Fantasy VII, are you more popular than Sid from Final Fantasy VI? I don't know.
I imagine more people have played 7 at this point. Considering there's 2 remake games. They still aren't fucking done with that storyline.
Was it Sid from 5 or 4 that blew himself up? Was that 5?
I was either 5 or 4. I know the Final Fantasy...
he blew himself up and lived.
16 Sid is quite popular.
I want to say 4. I literally just listened to people do a synopsis of all of the Final Fantasy games. It did blur together a lot, though.
Yeah, they all kind of tell basically the same story.
See, like, I can do a little bit of it because I can remember it. So it's 1 is the Light Warriors. They go fight Garland and create a time loop to fight Chaos and fight a time loop. 2 is the guy that speaks Beaver and they go fight Satan.
Yeah.
3 is the Little Onion Knights and its job selection. 4 is Bart's and his Chocobo, and there's weird dimensional shenanigans. Yep. 5 is everybody dies but lives, and they also fight the tree monster, which is Exdeath, who's really just a giant screaming tree. I think 4 was the sexy lady who's also an incarnation of Doom and Chaos. Yeah.
Yes. Cloud Darkness.
Cloud Darkness. 6 is Upsal Kefka, and has actually a really great story. 7, of course,
4.
Cloud.
7 is...
Did I say 4? Because I think I said 4.
You did say 4. 7 is Final Fantasy, but this time you're eco-terrorists.
Yeah. 8 is... Yes. Time travel? Time travel, question mark?
8 is 9 a mistake.
9 is... It's a classic Final Fantasy, but it's made in the reign of wrong era. Yeah. Wrong era, but really great, like, classic Final Fantasy story. Man, it could use a remake. Because it kind of shows, because it's the back end of PlayStation 1's life.
Yeah.
10 is Titus and his adventures. 11's an MMO. 12 is...
12 is Sky Pirates.
12 is Sky Pirates, but also Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
But also Final Fantasy Tactics, because it's technically the same world as that.
It is.
13 is...
Also a mistake.
I was just gonna leave ... Something about this girl named Lightning and like three
Hey, her card games. Her magic card's worth like $300 right now.
So stupid. 14's yes. MMO.
I can summarize 14 for you. A lot of things happen. Most of it is dumb, and also it maybe takes place in the same world as 12 because Final Fantasy 12 characters show up.
Yeah.
Not really explained, but also Noctis shows up in there as well for some reason.
Yep. 15 is Boys in the Car, and 16 is
correction.
Everybody...
15 is Boys in the Car, and then a really long hallway.
I forgot about the hallway. And 16 is it's an action
16
RPG.
16
it's Devil May Cry. It's Devil
May Cry, but with kaiju fights.
With kaiju fights. That's our incorrect yet correct summary of Final Fantasy.
Look, for me to explain just vaguely what Final Fantasy 14 is, I would be here for an hour.
Unfortunately, there's so many Final Fantasy games that fall under the same where you actually try to explain their plots. They are just...
Some of them are as hard to explain as Kingdom Hearts.
It's sort of like... And it started in 1, because there's a time paradox. It's sort of like... It's like you killed Garland, which was resurrected by himself in the past.
You don't need to play the first game. What you need to play is Strangers of Paradise, which is just Jack Garland being an idiot and not caring about the plot.
And suddenly killing you at chaos.
I'm trying to think. I think I heard Final Fantasy X described as parasites trying to stop zombies from doing politics.
That might be true. I've never played 10.
Honestly, that does describe it very well. Parasites trying to stop zombies from doing politics. Oh my god. And also, like, the main character is a dream or something. I don't know.
Peak Final Fantasy is a man... No. Hold on, yeah, we'll let you finish your thought.
Also, he's technically not the main character. He just accompanies the main character.
That's true.
You don't play the main character's Titus.
It's Yuna's story, right?
It's Yuna's story, and you're just there.
Look, peak Final Fantasy, to me, is that scene where this woman is pouring her heart and soul out for her tragic backstory, and Jack Garland, like a true boss, pulls out his phone and says, I don't give a damn, and he plays Limp Bizkit and walks away.
What the fuck is that game? I've heard memes from it, but I've never actually watched
that game. Is very funny. There's a bit where a boss is like, you can't kill me, and he goes into his huge rant, and Jack just fucking leaps at him, screams, I don't give a damn, and punches him. It's great.
So that's a game. There's also some other weird games in the Final Fantasy.
There's like 30 Final Fantasy games.
Anyway, that's why there's a lot of material for a magic.
That's why there's a lot of magic. That's why there's 99 legendaries.
Honestly, yep. I feel like even though they've hit up like main characters and stuff, they could probably do a second set with Final Fantasy.
There are some obscure characters in that set as legendaries.
There's other characters they could probably do more of, and they could probably like for certain characters like do other versions of them from like the storylines and stuff too.
If you do care about Final Fantasy 14 in any capacity, I'm just gonna put a big blanket warning. There's a lot of cards in that set that are just full-ass spoilers for that game.
That is amusing.
Yep.
You could, like, you're like, oh boy, I just started Final Fantasy 14, this 800-plus hour RPG, and then a very important plot point Endwalker is just fucking spoiled on a magic card.
Yep. Anyway, so there was Magic this week, and it involved Final Fantasy
a lot
cards.
of it. It was fun.
Mm-hmm. I think I tried the standard starter decks for both Cloud and Sephiroth. The Cloud one's mean.
The Cloud one is brutal. I really like the...
It's a very mean equipment deck. I'm like, wow, this is a pretty aggro equipment deck.
The 14 one is like requires so much mental energy because every time you cast a spell, you trigger some card in your deck to do something.
If I'm talking about like the commander ones, the Tarot one was interesting to try out, but I'm like also like this is. I understand why you're not as valuable as the other decks. I'm sorry, I love you, Terra. I love Final Fantasy VI, but like, this deck is.
Yeah, you're over there bringing things out of your graveyard. Linsman encounters around. I'm over here with 6 wizards, each that say when you cast a spell, you deal 1 damage to each opponent.
Snooking everybody. There's some. I'm getting flashbacks to Sauron amasses an army. God.
Oh, God, yeah.
That was abysmal. I'm sorry.
That might be maybe the worst card they've ever printed.
Every time an opponent casts a spell,
someone casts a spell, he gets more orcs.
They get bigger and meaner, and you can give them the goddamn ring.
I truly do hate Magic cards that are basically, you play this, and then no one else can play the game.
I think what I hated about it is none of us could block it ever, because it was the biggest creature. And, and the first thing that the Tempt ring says is, can't be blocked except by creatures larger than it. And I'm like, what the...
Yeah, no.
Is this mechanic?
It's a bad mechanic.
Like, I thought some of those mechanics were stupid. Like, start your engines. At least start your engines is just you do some damage. It goes up to 3.
I still don't know what that does.
You get it at 1 when you play it, and when you do combat damage to a player, you increase it by 1 up to the maximum. That's it. It's fairly simple.
I
It's
have
stupid,
an
but simple.
Aether Drift deck with an Aether Drift commander. I don't know what that mechanic does because I have a card in it that matters. I don't care enough.
Like, I've learned I don't mind the Monarch. That's fine. It's simple.
Monarch's pretty cool.
I actually don't mind the initiative thing because it's just you move through a dungeon.
My problem with initiative is it's not clearly explained which dungeon you're supposed to start in.
All I know is for what I was playing, because I was doing some of the Forge Adventures, they just gave me the same dungeon every time, and I was like, I'm fine with this.
There's 4 dungeons, and one of them is technically banned now. Because I think the Baldur's Gate dungeon is just dead-ass banned.
I think it was just the Tomb of Annihilation every time for me, which I was okay with, because it gave some interesting big choices, and I liked it. You know? I liked the Tomb of Annihilation. That was the dungeon that I'm like, I'll just use that every goddamn time if I have a choice. I don't know. It's weird. Anyway, sidetrack on Magic. Did anybody do anything like other tabletop related on a Monday?
Monday I did not because River was, I think, traveling again.
How about Tuesday then?
Tuesday we had Lightning's game. I have swapped out my character for the time being so I can off-screen rebuild a little bit to be something a little more fun than a barbarian. Barbarian's kind of boring in a game that's not super combat focused. They have their spaceship ready and good. They broke into the ruler's manor of the city for some reason. I don't remember why. And then they just stumbled upon my character, who is an advisor to the I think planetary ruler, who is just a big demon. So we learned that a demon that we killed purposely got himself killed so he could leave the planet to go and just remove in our setting we have planets that are quote-unquote shrouded, which have a source of protection that basically make them invisible to things that exist in the astral sea. There's a demon dude who wants to just remove a bunch of that, so a massive war starts, and because of the massive war, only the strong will be left, because that's what demons are all about. So, he's got a real flawless plan.
Incredibly flawless.
So we gotta go beat his ass again.
Makes
and trap
sense.
him in a Pokeball.
Wednesday we had Fall of Avonswell, which was very nice. They, it was a good plan, but it was also how do we get back to this place that we just left and ran away from? And it was navigation, which was fun. And then they got back into a dungeon, and I had I basically redid the dungeon as everything. Same place, difference because time has gone by a number of days, things have changed, So it's interesting how that's playing out. It's it's a same map, but things are different.
Yeah. I think it's kind of a neat idea, to reuse a map. You now have to go back. I actually think that's a really cool idea, and it should be used more in RPGs.
Hey, you guys wanted to do that, and I'm like, I can use that, sure.
Oh, I know it wasn't your intention, but I'm that's actually kind of a cool idea.
It's good enough for Halo, it's good enough for D&D.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes it works for storytelling. Not always, but sometimes. Sometimes it's just the same thing over and over again and boring. Other times not. So I think Wednesday went pretty well, and it was a good time. There was a nice big old boss battle. Technically, I guess we'll call it mini boss, because boss would probably be the boss of the entire story. So it was a mini boss fight. Anybody do anything on Thursday?
I didn't do tabletop related stuff. I may have played Magic, but I did Suffer on Thursday. I was conned into watching the Minecraft movie, which might be the worst movie I've ever seen. And I truly mean this. They need to stop making Jack Black sing when he's in movies.
Was it at least a passable, in quotation, kids movie?
So it's a kids movie.
Yeah.
But it's genuinely really stupid in a funny way, because every time Jack Black does something in the movie, he turns to the camera and says exactly what he's doing.
Okay, you know?
It's like it's the best way I can describe it is the most corporate movie I think I've ever watched. And that's saying something, because I've seen most MCU movies.
Oh god. Yeah.
There is a bit in this movie where one of the villains walks up to Jack Black, and instead of saying, "I'm gonna kill you," he says, "I'm going to unalive you." That's a line said in this movie.
Wow. Oh, that's so unnecessarily online culture.
It's really bad. I think I'm too offline for this movie.
People say that just to not use the term.
Here's the thing, though. With modern culture, like, younger people are just doing that now.
That was because of like.
This is how you have to get around YouTube and TikTok censorship. So young kids are just doing it now.
What are they doing?
Replacing words like "kill" and stuff with "unalive."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just a thing that's happening now.
Oh yeah, no, and it's even like and I've just seen videos that are like where every word that's even slightly bad is bleeped or fuzzed or whatever, and it's just like, this is so dumb. Like,
because kids who consume online content are going to, of course, because they're so young, think that's how you speak, and that's going to go into their vocabulary, and that's going to unfortunately just become a thing.
Yeah, I just think those kind of like things where it's like those things do poorly on YouTube and stuff just because you say a word is just so dumb.
Yeah, I think it's an unfortunate like kind of cascading effect of like the sterilization because of advertisements on the top means that people have to adapt to it, means that people that are learning from that change that adaptation to their actual language, and it's basically this forced thing, and it's kind of just terrible, honestly.
I will say though, there was a couple of pretty funny bits that had nothing to do with the main cast of Minecraft movie guys. There's a subplot where Jennifer Coolidge is just like dating a villager from Minecraft, and it's genuinely really funny.
Because I actually heard that movie is surprisingly good.
It's like very corporate, but in that way you can kind of laugh at it a little bit.
It's still kind of bad and not a great movie, but you could find entertainment in this and kind of like this. So, sort of like,
I mean, maybe I shouldn't say it's surprisingly good. I should say I've heard it's surprisingly entertaining. Is probably
like it's kind of like, even nowadays I could probably sit down and watch like one of the newer, even though I haven't seen it for a while, just because I haven't gone to movies, seen an MCU movie, I could probably watch one of those and find entertainment from it. Is it a good movie? Probably not.
There's a couple of really good lines in it, and I'm going to spoil another one. She like hits this villager with her car, and she gets out and runs up to him and is like, "Are you going to sue me? People tend to do that when I run them over with my Jeep Cherokee." Just like, what is this fucking fever dream of a movie?
Okay.
It's such a weird vibe. Like, all the stuff that's shot in the quote-unquote real world is genuinely just more entertaining than everything that's in the Minecraft world.
Huh.
I think it's because everything in the real world was shot with physical props and not a green screen.
That does make sense then, why it's, yeah.
It's such a strange movie.
Yup. I'm just gonna say yup on that one.
I don't recommend watching it.
I
recommend actually just watching Cosmonaut Variety Hour's video on it. You'll get all the best bits from it in that.
I feel like it's one of those things, it's just like, you have nothing better to watch, and it's there. It might be okay to see.
Maybe you watch it with, like, friends, you can make fun of it together.
Yeah. It's that kind of experience. Like, for killing some time, it's fine. But it's like going out of your way for it, probably not. So. How about Friday? I've been doing anything Friday. I mean, we did Grounded some more. We continued our game.
I think I just like played video games on Friday.
Yeah. Not gonna lie. I had my entertainment. I went and fought some creatures in a weird sandbox desert.
Sandbox Desert, huh?
Ground is a weird game in a lot of ways. I'm not going to lie.
Is it like done now?
Yes, because they're working on a second one.
Oh, okay.
One of those announcements at those various game awards or things was.
Because I remember playing it like when it was first released in early access and be like, this is pretty good, and I never played it again.
Here's the thing. I remember playing it early on, watching early on. That amounted to maybe 25% of what it was. Because
you only had like the initial first area.
Zone.
I think I played a little bit when they added the pond, which was like the second big update.
That's still like 25% because we haven't scratched the surface of like the northern part of the yard, which is above the pond.
Lord.
Yeah, and we just kind of went into like some of the corners and like the south part here because there's that's where the sandbox is, which is filled with antlions, and then there's like a poison zone and like over by the trash. There's some stuff too, and that's just like that's the south. We've now kind of like explored half the map, in our adventures, and we've kind of gotten deep into the storyline. Now we have to go to the north, and it's sort of like the only way to go is through an area that's also hot. So that's why I've been making like hot gear. Also, Worm's building our base, and it's much nicer looking than just piles of grass. It actually looks really nice. You and Blaze were doing a great job while I was off murdering stuff.
That is how it goes.
I wandered off and killed stuff.
I usually make someone else build the base when I play these kind of games, and I go do other stuff.
I'm too practical, so I'll be like, the box is fine. And it's less that I would.
You add rooms when you need space.
I add rooms in design when I feel like I actually want to spend time on something, but that's rare because usually it's like resources. I think some of my weird designs in like 7 days is where I got to like really weird stuff and experimental. That's where I actually started building onto some stuff. Where though, even 7 days, that first room starts off as a box, and I build off of there because it's sort of like the room to like live in to start out with, and I just build stuff off of there, and. I think like one of my designs, I really liked one of the buildings I made that was this weird avant-garde buildings where I made like, I built like up in a kind of like weird way, and then I made like side areas where I built like gardens and had like buildings above them and stuff like that. It was weird. Yeah. Look, if you have enough cement and time, you can build anything in 7 days.
True.
But that's it. That's a game. I guess, Worm, you did not have your game today. Kind of mentioned.
No, I did not, because the GM was on or out of town. Not particularly on vacation, but...
Hey, out of town can mean a lot of different things. Vacation, family affair, business, all those kind of happen. Sometimes just busy. I know it's interesting to see plenty of people are off on random conventions every other weekend. It feels like at this thing, it's that season of a lot of conventions. But I'm like, conventions.
True.
And I feel like it's at this point in time, unless it's for some kind of business or going to see actual people, I just don't really feel like going. I'm gonna go hang out, maybe.
Money to do conventions now, but I have no desire.
Yeah. Hang out with friends, that's the kind of the only reason I might do it.
The only one I'd go is probably the one that's out in the Philly area to hang out with people.
Yeah, I do want to do more hanging with PAX Unplugged and make it more of that, but also that's kind of one of those things that I'm like, I just feel more and more nowadays I'd rather a place to stay by there rather than travel down every day because travel sucks.
Yeah, it really comes down to the fact that hotels and Airbnbs are very expensive.
That's the problem. It's like, how much are you willing to put up with shit with travel or pay the extra money? That's the question.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll answer that this year. I don't know. I'm still on travel. We'll see. That's the thing. That's all. I remember now to talk to people about that eventually because it's in November now.
Oh, they moved it?
Yes, it's
That might be more. I mean, that's more convenient for me, but
yeah, they moved it back a few weeks. To I think it's before Thanksgiving now.
That's a little more convenient, but
21st to 23rd. So right, yeah. It's technically the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I actually do believe before Thanksgiving. So Thanksgiving next week.
Yeah, I mean, between me moving though and my partner is handling it full time. Life, eh?
It is life that makes it difficult to do these things a lot of times. Well, that was our week in tabletop. If you want to go see, I did a bunch of videos on some stuff as usual. There were some very interesting ones to talk about. Speaking of one of our talks we had the previous week, it was the group you're not supposed to play, but it's part of Mage, which are basically like, because they do mages for like all the different religions. The ones that are based on the Jewish faith, they don't get involved with anything. They're kind of interesting. They were an interesting one to talk about because they're basically Orthodox Jewish people that just listen to their community and happen to have abilities. You know, are they displaying their culture correctly? I have no idea. I doubt it. It's White Wolf from the 90s. God, you kidding me? Interesting to talk about, but it's that kind of thing of like you have to take stuff in the past with a grain of salt. Interesting ideas sometimes, but you know, it's what stuff you touch with 10-foot pole. Look at how much was like changed in Raven. We talked. But yeah, so you can check out my videos if you want to see some interesting tabletop stuff. You want to check out Paul Babenswell. Check out this show next week. Worm, you can give your shout out because I guess we're on our goodbyes here.
Sorry, I somehow randomly ran across a meme just now where there's apparently a card combo where to win it, if like this, it's very specific, like you know, like for it to actually come up and play, and I think it uses some banned cards. But basically, if this specific situation comes up, you have to be able to prove that there is an infinite number of prime numbers that are two apart in number to win.
That's such a weird niche, man.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, yeah. So basically, you have to be able to prove that there's because this is the thing. It's theoretical that there are an infinite number of prime numbers that are two apart, such as 11, 13 are two apart, and then you've got 29 and 31 I think are both prime. So like you get these two apart, and they found them like super far, and so you have to be able to prove that goes on infinitely to win this card game. To win this scenario. Anyway, I'm DiamondWyrm. You can find me on twitch.tv/DiamondWyrm or at DiamondWyrm on Twitter, Blue Sky, and DiamondWyrm9234 on YouTube. If you just search DiamondWyrm on YouTube, you'll probably find me as well. My next stream should be tomorrow morning at 10:30 a.m. PDT. Sunday.
I'm gonna go for my favorite of the old-timey combos, and this is definitely gonna date me for when it comes to Magic Gathering. Channel, Fireball, Black Lotus. There you go. You win the game.
That is old.
I actually saw that in it used because my brother at one point in time owned an unlimited Black Lotus. He ended up selling off many, many years ago. Before things got expensive, of course.
God, that is so old.
But he basically, as much younger me, he had a deck with that and played against me, and just like, you're nuked.
I'm a very big fan of a dumb combo that doesn't win you the game, but makes it so no one else can do anything. Where you put a Pramicon and a Mystic Barrier in play, because both those cards specify that you pick a direction, and the game can only move attacks in that direction, so you pick opposite directions and no one can attack.
I saw that. I also like Island Sanctuary and the one that, because that means you can only be attacked by Island Walk or Flying, and the thing that everything loses Island Walk and Flying. So like nothing can attack. Yay! Shut down the game.
You play that, and then you play the guy who gets filibuster counters at the end of every turn. And when he has 5 of them, you win the game.
It's like, look, no one can do anything. I'm just gonna sit here and win the game. Enjoy. Look, I both hate and love infinite combos in Magic. It's one of those things that's like, you really feel great when you do it, but then you hate it when someone does it on you. Anyway. Check out the rest of my stuff. My links are down below. Go do the support on the YouTube side of things. If you're over there, remember to give a subscription. That helps a lot. And make sure to join myself and hopefully some of these folks next week for Discussing Tabletop on Saturday. And hey, I'll be back on Tuesday for some more of my stuff. And everybody, have a great rest of your weekend and a great rest of your Saturday. And I'll see you in the future. Bye!